With 3.8 million square kilometers of territorial seas, there is unexpectedly no room for an aircraft carrier. The Admiral Kuznetsov, which has been in service for 35 years, has been suspended from maintenance and renovation. This steel giant that once carried the glory of a great power is about to be reduced to scrap metal. The Slavs' 300-year pursuit of sea power dreams may come to an end here. And Russia is set to become the only permanent member of the UN Security Council without an aircraft carrier. In 2016, the aircraft carrier Admiral Kuznetsov led a formation to the Mediterranean Sea for counterterrorism operations. During this mission, it carried out over 400 combat tasks and struck more than 1,000 enemy targets. It was originally thought to be the beginning of the Russian Navy's march toward glory, but who could have imagined it would turn out to be the final swan song? Today, the Russian Navy can no longer maintain an aircraft carrier that symbolizes maritime authority. The Moskva cruiser, which held special significance, has also sunk to the bottom of the sea. The Black Sea Fleet has suffered repeated setbacks in the war, and even the deputy commander of the Navy was killed on the land battlefield. The Slavic dream of dominating the oceans has gradually become a joke. So, how will Russia, having lost its aircraft carrier, maintain its great power influence? Does Russia still have the ability to build large surface warships and restore the Navy's strength to its peak in the history of global maritime power competition? There is one country that stands out as particularly unique, and that is Russia. This country has an intense desire for oceans and territory. Geographically speaking, Russia is truly a maritime nation with an extremely long coastline. However, these coastlines are all concentrated on the Arctic Ocean side. The year-round frozen ocean surface has turned Russia into a landlocked country in practice. During the Tsarist Russia period, Russia wanted to join the European camp, so it needed to open up a sea route connecting Western Europe and find ice-free ports that allowed free access to the sea. After establishing this goal, Tsarist Russia began a frantic expansion. The available directions for expansion were the Baltic Sea in the west and the Black Sea in the south, both of which became must-contend territories for Tsarist Russia. During the reign of Peter the Great, Tsarist Russia defeated Sweden and gained access to the Baltic Sea. Catherine the Great launched 3 Russo-Turkish wars, ultimately seizing the outlet to the Black Sea and control over the Black Sea Strait. At the same time, Tsarist Russia also pushed eastward, seizing the vast territory of Siberia and forcing the Qing dynasty to cede the outer Manchuria region. However, semi-frozen ports like Vladivostok could not satisfy Tsarist Russia's ambitions. They still clung to China's Liaodong Peninsula, as it housed truly ice-free ports. After prolonged expansion, the Slavs gained control of over 20 million square kilometers of land spanning Europe and Asia, laying the foundation for modern Russia's territorial boundaries. In this process, Tsarist Russia also forged a powerful navy, including the Baltic Fleet, Arctic Ocean Fleet, Black Sea Fleet, and Okhotsk Fleet. Peter the Great once famously said, "A ruler with only an army is like a one-armed monarch. Only those who possess both an army and a navy are monarchs with 2 complete arms." This belief continued to endure into the Soviet era. The Soviet Union inherited all the strength of Tsarist Russia and, after its victory in World War II, became a superpower on par with the United States. To safeguard its maritime rights, the Soviet Union established 4 major fleets. Among them, the Arctic Ocean Fleet was expanded into the Northern Fleet, based in the port of Murmansk, responsible for the Arctic and Atlantic waters, and equipped with strategic weapons such as nuclear submarines and aircraft carriers. The Okhotsk Fleet was reorganized into the Pacific Fleet, based in Vladivostok, once boasting 2 Kiev-class aircraft carriers and over 100 submarines. The Baltic Fleet and the Black Sea Fleet retained their names and bases but saw a significant enhancement in their capabilities. By the 1980s, the Soviet Navy reached its peak, with nearly 1,000 warships totaling 3.8 million tons in displacement. However, despite its apparent strength, the Soviet Navy had fatal flaws. First, the Baltic Fleet, when seeking to sail out to sea, had to face the encirclement of the navies, air forces, and armies of Britain, France, and Germany. The Black Sea Fleet was also constrained by the Turkish Straits. Although the Northern Fleet could freely enter and exit the open oceans, its base was far from the economic centers in the heart of Eastern Europe. As for the Pacific Fleet, it went without saying that it was isolated in the east, almost in a world of its own, separate from the other 3 fleets. It can thus be seen that the Soviet Union's four major fleets actually operated independently, with their strength severely scattered. Second, the Soviet Union placed excessive emphasis on the development of submarines and cruiser gunboats while neglecting the importance of aircraft carriers. For a long time, the Soviet Union had a misalignment in its positioning of surface warships. While the United States regarded aircraft carriers as the core of its fleets, the Soviet Union took submarines as its main force, with surface ships merely playing a supporting role, primarily responsible for covering submarines or coordinating with the Army via naval guns. It was not until after the 1960s Cuban Missile Crisis that the Soviet Union realized the significance of aircraft carriers. Over the following 30 years, it built 7 aircraft carriers, but the only one that could truly be called an aircraft carrier was the Admiral Kuznetsov, which entered service in 1990. Looking back at the more than 200 years of history from Tsarist Russia to the Soviet Union, it is evident that the Russian people have always harbored an ambitious maritime strategic goal. Tsarist Russia gained sea outlets through continuous expansion, and the Soviet Union kept expanding its maritime combat capabilities to compete with the United States for hegemony. However, despite their ambition to pursue hegemony, they lacked the wisdom to manage maritime affairs. It can even be said that their erroneous strategies back then have led to Russia's current predicament. The Russians invested massive resources in building a powerful naval force but received no returns, unlike sea power nations such as Britain and the United States. Britain and the United States either used their sea power advantages to develop foreign trade or engage in resource plunder, while the Soviet Union and Russia only faced consumption. Additionally, the United States focused on developing more comprehensive aircraft carrier fleets, acquiring terrifying global projection capabilities, whereas the Soviet Union neglected aircraft carriers and instead bet on nuclear submarines. Although nuclear submarines are indeed powerful weapons in straits, their functions are overly single-dimensional. They lack defensive capabilities, cannot display visible deterrence like aircraft carriers, and their maintenance costs are no lower than those of aircraft carriers. Thus, the sea power that Russia has long pursued has instead become a burden that consumes national strength, ultimately hollowing out the Soviet Union. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, Russia inherited most of its naval strength and even secured the only aircraft carrier, the Admiral Kuznetsov. However, the military-industrial system built by the Soviet Union became fragmented with the dissolution of the alliance. For example, the Black Sea Shipyard, which constructed the Admiral Kuznetsov, is located in Ukraine. After the outbreak of conflicts with Ukraine, military-industrial cooperation between the two sides was severed. As a result, the Admiral Kuznetsov suffered from a lack of proper maintenance and upkeep. Coupled with its inherent issues, it eventually became an accident-prone iron shell. In fact, Russia should learn from the experiences and lessons of the Soviet Union. Regardless of the circumstances, it should prioritize the maintenance and construction of aircraft carriers. However, Russia's economy is in dire straits. Its limited funds need to be allocated to maintaining nuclear arsenals, submarines, bombers, and more, leaving no room for modernizing shipyards. Russia's military budget for 2025 is $145 billion, a large portion of which will be consumed by the war, making it even less likely to have extra funds for aircraft carrier maintenance and renovation. Most importantly, the impact of international sanctions is significant. Russia struggles to obtain advanced technologies and materials from abroad, such as precision electronic components, special steel, and specialized equipment.